What's up everybody? For starters, I just wanted to say welcome to the channel. The support and love that I've received over the last month of starting this thing has been absolutely incredible. I woke up this morning to 100 subscribers and it's still growing by the day. And I have a lofty goal of reaching 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2023 and we're already 1/10 of the way there. So if you're interested in my life as a full-time videographer, running a business, go ahead and click that subscribe button to follow along. I think before we start this story, it's important to know a little background on my filmmaking journey. When I first started filming weddings back in 2017, I had a very limited amount of money and really was looking for a great budget lens that could just do it all. And I was rocking this camera, which is the Sony a6300. At the time, it was an older camera, but it still shot in slow motion 1080 and it had a great image. And after looking at a lot of research on all of the great do-it-all lenses, I landed on this guy, which is the Sony 18-105 f4. Now, for a crop sensor body, this lens was such an incredible value for all the focal lengths you can get. I knew that I wanted a lens that could be my all-day lens when shooting weddings and events, and it was just that for a very, very long time. And judging by the fact that you can still buy this exact lens brand new today on B&H, it's definitely withstood the times. So that's exactly what I did. The limitations of the f4 were definitely seen in low light scenarios, but pairing this 18-105 with a 35 f4 really got me through my beginner days as a videographer. So why do I even bring up this lens at all? This is supposed to be a long-term review on this guy, the Tamron 35-150, right? Well, exactly. I wanted to take a moment to paint the picture of why I'm in love with this exact focal length, and why I believe it's the best for wedding videographers, but also great for a multitude of other productions. See, the 18-105 f4 lens is designed for APS-C Sony cameras, and using the 1.5 times crop that you get out of an APS-C camera, that means that this 18-105 is the equivalent of a 27-157.5, which is pretty darn close to the 35-150 that we're talking and seeing out of the Tamron. When moving up the full frame in 2019, I typically ran two lens setups. One was a 24-70 2.8, the other was a 70-180 2.8. And generally with these two, I could cover about everything. But about 80% of the time when I was on the 24-70, I was shooting at 50mm plus. And about 80% of the time when I was on the 70-200, I was shooting under 120. So it worked, but it could definitely have been better. Now that we've established why I love the focal length, let's talk about why I love Tamron. Unlike some old school photographers and videographers, I have no fear of Tamron lenses. After owning several of the 70-180 2.8s and loving them, plus the 17-28 that I'm currently shooting on now, I've loved Tamron's price to image quality ratio that I've always gotten. So when I first saw this lens announced, I immediately jumped on the pre-order in hopes that I could get back to the focal length that I knew and loved with my 18-105. And finally, in the summer of 2022, I got the Tamron 35-150 2-2.8, and I can confidently say it's rare that this lens has ever left my camera. You see, I hate to put a label on what kind of videographer I am, but 80% of the time I find myself shooting live events. From concerts to weddings to corporate events that need a highlight video, most of the time it's a run and gun type of setup that I have no idea what I need to be prepared for. And this lens excels at exactly just that. After a year and a half of owning this lens and using it almost daily, I definitely find it hard to say anything bad about this lens. But I want to focus on three main sections for this overview: the focal length, the quality, and the future. Let's start first with the focal length. Now, I'll agree with this. Just because I say I use this lens almost every shoot doesn't exactly mean that you should also use this lens. For me, this is a live events lens through and through. If you're in the cinema world, rocking this lens probably isn't the best option. If you film a lot of interviews, you'll be able to shape the room to however you need it for your lens. If you shoot vlogs or in tight spaces, then you'll probably want a wider lens than a 35mm. The best thing about this lens is the vast amount of focal distances that it can cover. So if you know you need the range, you'll know you need the range, and there isn't anything quite else like it on the market right now. But for me, it's perfect for live events and not knowing where you need to be or where you'll be next. I've never had the thought of, man, I wish I could punch in a little bit further. And also, on the wide end, it's still very rare that I ever need to go any wider than 35mm. When originally purchasing this lens, I thought the biggest downside would be the changing aperture. But From what I've learned over the last year is that the changing aperture from 2 to 2.8 has never been limiting in my filmmaking journey. It's such an unnoticeable stop of light that it's rare that I ever find myself needing a constant aperture. Alright, let's move on to talk about the quality of this lens. Compared to every other Tamron lens that I own, this one is an absolute beast. With a mostly metal construction and the 82mm thread on the end, it's far bigger and far heavier and just far more professional feeling than any other Tamron lens I've ever seen. Something to note on the build quality. It's been over a year of using this lens and I'm starting to notice some wear around the zoom and the focus ring. Additionally, I've noticed over the last few months that there's some specks starting to gather on the inside of the glass. Although I haven't noticed any of these showing up on any image that I've recorded, it's something to note. However, after inspecting all of my zoom lenses, especially the Sony 24-70, I've noticed that it's pretty much in all of them. Maybe it's just time to send the thing off and get it cleaned. A good cleaning will never hurt. And while we're talking about the downsides, it's fair to mention that one downside I've noticed throughout the years is it is quite heavy. It's by far the heaviest lens I own. But I'm also a glass half full type of person, and since I shoot a majority of my films handheld, the overall weight is really just a benefit. My wrists may not think so at times, but they'll get over it. Regardless of all these small issues that aren't really issues at all, I've been more impressed with the overall build quality of this lens. It is just a beast. Let's talk about the future. 5 years ago, focal length of 35 to 150 with a 2 to 2.8 aperture was just unheard of. It couldn't be done. And I'm so excited the lens technology is only getting better throughout the years. And yeah, sure, I'd love that this would have a constant f2 aperture similar to that beefy Canon lens, but the shift to 2.8 hasn't really affected my work whatsoever. Either way, I'm super excited for the future of this lens and what we'll get out of future iterations. Maybe one day we'll even see a 16 to 150 with a constant f2 aperture. That'd be crazy. So thanks so much for hanging out with me today and trusting me enough to actually take time to listen. If you had a good time or if you learned anything at all, go ahead and click that subscribe button below. We're on a mission to get 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2023. And although it might be a little difficult, I think we can make it happen. I'll see you next time.